A little brief introduction, Alex. Well, I'll introduce myself. I live on the Big Island, and I make my home in Waimea, and I'm pretty active in a little. I wear many hats, but it's food security. I'm really interested in energy and energy policy and how we don't make fossil fuels on island or in the state, and but we have lots of sun and wind, and that's where we really need to go.
Yeah, definitely. Francine, you want to go next?
Sure. Let's see. I live in Ahualoa near Honoka'a, and currently just trying to organize a community action group around a neighborhood watch structure. And I'm an EV owner, and trying to find avenues that will create materials that you can take to the general community, in any forum that you're in. If I go to a community association meeting, I want to have the language and the recommendations that will be heard by the communities that I operate in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then my name is Alex. So I work for Malama Mauna Lua, but we partner with this agency on Oahu called Protect and Preserve Hawaii. Protect and Preserve Hawaii is a biocultural forestry project, which is fairly new. We just started back in 2019, right before the pandemic broke out, with the anticipation that in 2020, we were going to start to do some biocultural forestry restoration, which is essentially like restoring forest ecosystems with a cultural aspect in mind. So incorporating aspects of Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian values, Hawaiian just practices into forestry restoration so that we can preserve some of the ecosystems down here for habitat and creation. But we are located down on the south shore of Oahu in Pia Valley, which is a kind of earlet valley off of Niu, but we make up the upper watershed region. And yeah, I think I'm just gonna get started. But yeah, I think to kind of kick us off, there's a story that's kind of associated with this organization and this nonprofit and how they had gotten started within the last year. And then after, because I'm out in the field today, I'll take you guys around. We're in the middle of a field day with our volunteers. So we have about 25 of them out in the field with us, planting trees, clearing invasive species of grass and other trees that are out competing our natives. But how this all got started is a local car dealer on Oahu. He used to own all of this property that we're sitting on. It's over 100 acres. There's not a lot of places on the island of Oahu where there's this vast amount of land kind of left undeveloped. So this land is seeded as conservation. When he bought it, it was with the intent that he was gonna take it, build urban subdivisions and stuff like that, gated communities that would essentially like repurpose or redesign this whole region. And so instead of the forest that I'm sitting in, potentially this could have been like someone's. Oh, awesome. Hey Charles, how's it going? Thanks for jumping in. I think you're muted now. But yeah, so this whole region, this forest that I'm sitting in right now, was slated for development. Fortunately, the developer encountered some financial issues, so he had to put the plot up for auction. The president and the founder of Protect and Preserve Hawaii, Tyrone Monteiro, he found the parcel in auction. He was just a normal auto mechanic. He went to the auction looking for something like, I don't know, a condominium in Waikiki, something that he could just live out of, and instead ended up buying the 100 acres that is Protect and Preserve Hawaii. And he bought it with a very specific intent in mind. He had grown up here. He's from the island of Oahu, grew up in Mililani, and had seen a lot of the degradation that was happening in our environments. And decided that he wanted to turn this place into a forest reserve and to kind of restore this area for future generations to come, and to just give back to this land here in Hawaii and this land on Oahu. And so yeah, we're out in the field today. We lead a service events almost every Saturday, if not every other Saturday of the month, with volunteers who have come out and helped us plant trees, remove invasive species. They've done all different types of work. And so, yeah, it's been a really awesome experience. Tyrone has partnered with a lot of state and federal agencies as well as nonprofits just to make sure that, you know, what he's doing out here is right, that it's not just right in terms of conservation, but it's also right culturally. It's right with the community. So the community, you know, really supports preserving this land and this region, because so much of Oahu at this point has been developed that yeah, and everything that we do, you know, up here in Pia affects everything that happens down in the bay that's adjacent to us, which is Mauna Lua. And so always looking at conservation work and even climate change work from Moka to Makai, or from the land to the sea, and from an Ahupua'a or watershed type of standpoint. But yeah, does anyone have any questions? Well, that was a very brief introduction.
Yes, I know there are threatening signs when you start to go up that trail on the back of Pia Valley, says no trespassing. Is there anybody really going to take you to court if you go up there to observe, or even volunteer to help clear and plant?
I don't know if we have any signs up there.
I think it's, I don't know, if, I'm not sure which estate or whatever has the signs there. Maybe it's I'm not sure who it is, but there are signs.
The property, because it's a private road, but the property on the right is privately owned. The property on the left is under Border Water Supply and Protect and Preserve. We currently don't have any signs up. I think the president and the founder of the organization, he's really open to having people here. He's open to people recreationally using it, because it's meant to be restored for the community. And so he doesn't want them to feel isolated or feel like they don't have you know, a stake in kind of seeing the change, especially if it's a positive one that's happening on this land. And so yeah, you're more than welcome to come up, see the restoration sites. If you want more information too, I can type the website down in the chat, but it's basically just Protect and Preserve Hawaii. If you type that into your Google search bar, it should pull us up. And we do have volunteer work days almost every other weekend. But yeah, does anyone else have any other questions?
I'm curious, do you work a lot then with the Nature Conservancy? It seems that they have projects similar to what you're describing.
We don't partner necessarily with the Nature Conservancy. I know the Nature Conservancy, they have a lot of projects and a lot of staff, but they're stretched just as thin as us. And so a lot of the reason why we have a lot of nonprofits popping up too is because we are looking at specific regions. And then this region too, it's private land. It's owned just by one private landowner. And so we've tried to partner with organizations around us within our region. And so the Ko'olau Mountain Watershed Partnership is one of them. We've applied for grants through the NRCS, or the, what is that, Natural Resources Conservation Services. Malama Mauna Lua is one of our partners. We also partner with other organizations and nonprofits like Mauna Lua Fish Pond Heritage Center and Livable Hawaii Kaihui. So yeah, we've got our array of partners, and it's just about trying to find, I guess, whose kind of goals and missions also align with ours, and how we can kind of work together collaboratively, work hand in hand.
See you, I think, next Saturday, planting plants.
Yep, and we're up here this Saturday planting plants.
Sounds like one of your biggest challenges is just the manpower to do the work.
Manpower is always, manpower is always a big thing, but we've actually got a very steady crew of volunteers. I'm one of many core volunteer leaders that help facilitate the slew of volunteers that we have come out every weekend. And so it's been really awesome. And these volunteer leads and some of our volunteers that come out too, they're not, like, a lot of them are your average shows, so just people who are retired or school children who are looking for things to do on the weekend. But we've got a lot of conservationists from all different types of organizations. So for example, we have field crew supervisors from the Oahu Invasive Species Committee. We have about 4 of them out in the field with us today. We have the Hawaii Ant Lab guys out with us today. They were our guest speakers. I work for Malama Mauna Lua, but I also used to work for the Department of Land and Natural Resources, this Division of Forestry and Wildlife. We've got that guys from the Native Ecosystem Protection Agency out here, just all different walks of life. And then we've got your accountants, your doctors, your school teachers, your students that are all just looking for something to do on the weekends and want to make a positive difference in not just their environments, but in their own backyards. Because a lot of them are shuffling in from right down the street, within the watersheds. So it's really awesome. And for some of these people who started planting trees with us just last October, some of these a'ali'i trees, some of these wili trees, they're getting big, and they're getting big fast. And so they're coming back 6 months down the line, and these trees are just as tall as they are, and they're just kind of looking at that, feeling that sense of pride and that relationship to this aina, or to this land. So it's been super awesome to have all of these partners, have all of these volunteers, and all of this willing and eager manpower to come out and really do some good work.
Alex, I have a question for you, since you've worked with some of the state agencies and infrastructure. I'm on Big Island, and I'm in the Honoka'a area. So as I mentioned, I work where I am. So right now I have a community association and a neighborhood watch group that's seemed to show some interest in cleaning up areas. So we found that in our zone, which is on the edge of the Hamakua Forest Preserve, there are some dumping sites. So we're trying to do both cleanup and create community awareness for, protecting the land and recognizing the impact that commercial and residential illegal dumping is just having, and how we can prevent that. So just even figuring out who owns these land areas alongside of our roads has been a challenge, to figure out the TMK maps and so on. But I had someone from DLNR who took my call and sounded interested in looking at a dumping site where there were mattresses and cars and trash bags. And I'm wondering if like what's the division that I would look to for assistance in like DNLR. It doesn't sound like it's, the wildlife division. Do you have an idea?
It really depends. And so, like that might be a city and county problem. Land ownership things are always really tricky. Sometimes it's city and county, sometimes it's department, like anything like water related is Department of Health. So like streams, reservoirs. Then you've also got like Board of Water Supply or private landowners who also own land. And so it's tricky. I would contact someone down at like the city or the regional office to see if they can assist you or to help you translate those TMKs to figure out who the landowner is and the best form of contact for them. The good thing about the TMK maps too is that they also have like property owner information, because people have to pay property taxes every year, and it should list at least like who the owners are and just basic contact for them if you are seeing problems happening or occurring on their land, if you'd like to bring that to their attention.
Yeah, and the other piece of it is, folks in the community who just kind of don't have this awareness. They're interested in picking up trash, but they haven't made the transition yet to recognize like, environmental impact or preservation or restoration. And so this is kind of the beginning of organizing and changing awareness and language in community settings. Do you have any resources for that? I don't have an active group of college students who are studying, land management to like draw on. I'm looking to change the awareness of the people who live here day to day in a small community. And I think that that's a model that probably has been figured out, somewhere already. And I'm just looking for those kind of resources and tips. And
yeah, definitely, Francis. So we definitely don't want you folks to like have to reinvent the wheel, because a lot of the work that I think that you mentioned or you're talking about or interested in kind of getting started, someone else has probably already started it on, and it may not be on the island of Hawaii, it may be on Oahu or Maui. One of the organizations that really came to mind when you were talking to me about kind of cleaning up those areas is we have an organization called 808 Cleanups on Oahu. And I'm not sure if they have active groups or huis on Big Island, but their whole mission is to do exactly what you're kind of saying. There are people who have like their own illegal dump sites, and they drop things, everything from like car batteries to mattresses to tires in areas. And 808 cleanups, they have like an online app on their phone. They have a website. They receive funding too. They put in for grants as well, so that there's some incentive for their staff or for them to recruit volunteer organizers or group leaders to go out with groups of people and to clean up these areas and remove all of the trash. And they've been transitioning. They've been doing work with trash removal and cleanup, so beach cleanups, park cleanups. They've also been doing invasive species removal. So here on Oahu, they help with a lot of our coastal regions. So they remove a lot of keawe that's growing up in our sand dunes. They pull out a lot of invasive grass, or they cut a lot of invasive grass. And they also have been doing some cultural work as well. So like fish pond, they've been helping to revitalize some of the local or the fish ponds down here. They've been working to restore some lo'i or taro patches. And so it's been really awesome to have that group. But I think they would be a good starting point in terms of figuring out at least like a good structure or foundation if it's something that you're interested in doing, or if you even wanted to set up kind of your own little regional team of volunteers out there. The good thing for them, and one of the big things for incentive for nonprofits like this one, like Protect and Preserve, is that social media, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It can be used as a tool, but it can also hinder your advancement. And so
Right.
if you use it well, like a lot of our volunteers, they find out about our organization via social media. And so our manpower has increased because of that, because we're very active on it. We post our volunteers, we have our volunteers share our story and what we're doing out here, and actively get them involved. And even if we just get those one-time people that are like, hey, like, look at me, look at what I'm doing, I planted a tree. Their one post will kind of spider web across multiple platforms, and a lot of people will see it and it'll pique their interest, and they'll come out and want to plant a tree or make a difference in their own backyards and environments.
Yeah, that's really it. It's the building and the layering and increasing consciousness so that, people recognize it's not just because I want to go take a walk along the road and there's trash. And so if I clean that up, that's a good thing. It's like, well, what's the next step, that we can find out about how some of this stuff is impacting the environment and how we can build from there. So thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know we got like 45 seconds left, but.
Here on Hawaii Island, we're actually gonna plant bamboo in some of the old sugar culture. The land has changed. What's nice about bamboo is you can actually build things not only for building here on island, but export. So, and we have containers that will go back full of things, instead of exporting our dollars, we're gonna make some.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, we're gonna jump back into the main room, guys. If you have any other questions, I'll put my email in that chat.